tend to have like a couple of good days where I'm fairly productive and get some work done, and then like we'll crash out for a day and just like, what's the point of any of this? And just lay in bed all day, you know?
Yeah, I've been kind of like that too. But you know what? I used to be able to do, like even earlier this year, I was doing like 2 pages a day. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And now it takes me 2 days to do 1 page. So
Welcome.
yeah. And I feel this like, well, I had all this pressure on me to get the Grateful Dead book done on time. And then I got it done on time, but I'm sure it took like a year off my life. And and then now it's delayed because of the virus. So it's like, fuck.
Yeah. Have you been able to get back to work on your other book at all?
Yep, I'm back to work on it now.
Smith? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
You must not have like too hard of a deadline on that, right? Or is it pretty hard?
I can't tell. It's, honestly, it's supposed to be done. I'm supposed to turn in everything, all the finished stuff in October. It's not going to happen, but I just can't imagine knowing all the stuff I still have to draw and write for it. I just can't imagine I'll be able to get that done, because I also want to go back to the stuff I did earlier and fix it, because I've been working on the book for 2 years now, so.
Are you still able to just like sit all day and like draw and not have any like physical ramifications?
Yeah, it depends. Some days, it's weird, man. One day I was just drawing at the coffee shop. I got up and I threw out my back somehow by like just sitting at that table. Yeah. And then I had like a bad back for like 3 days.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm all screwed up. Like, I can't tell if it's just like drawing is so, well, I draw for a living too, just storyboarding. And then when I was working on my graphic novel, I was just drawing like 15-hour days, like constantly.
Honestly, this is what you're most well known for, right?
That, or my association with Harvey Pekar still.
Yeah, that one.
I mean, people, yeah. Cartoon Clouds is the most personal thing,
Mm-hmm. Are you still happy with Cartoon Clouds, or do you feel like it, do you look back on it and you're like, oh?
I mean, as much as I can be. I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I'm like really self-critical though. So I think like the first 30 pages of that book, there was like a gap between when I started it and then like picked it back up again. By the time I picked it back up again, I'd learned a lot. And so like after that, I can like look through and be like, this is fine. I think this reads well and the pacing seems right, and the drawings look okay to my eye, but like I can't read through the first 30 pages without cringing.
Really?
Yeah.
I have that mini comic that you did of the first 30 pages too, that you basically swindled the printer to have them make it.
What do you mean? I don't remember that.
I don't know. So you're working on a book that you can't talk about, but like, for a living, you would do like commercials, like you would storyboard like a Ford truck commercial.
Yeah.
Everybody does that kind of stuff in LA, right?
Not everybody. So, I mean, yeah, it's one reason a lot of people come to LA who are artists, because you can actually make a living using those skills. But then you kind of like price yourself out of being able to make comics in a way, because some people can do it, but if you're super busy churning out industry type artwork all day, it becomes that much harder to work on that stuff, or even have the motivation to work on it. I know I certainly got burnout on just being able to like draw all day for a job and then spend 3 hours a night working on my comic, and like at least one day on the weekend doing it or whatever. So
yeah, that would make me feel sick if I did draw all day something I didn't want to draw, and then I'm like, now I have to draw something I want to draw, but it's like at that point you're just like, I'm gonna throw up if I draw more.
Right. Fortunately, I have like other interests and hobbies and things. Like I've been recording music. And that's mainly what I've been spending my like free creative time doing. But I'm just slow in general at all this stuff. So like whenever I get close to like releasing something, it's always like the worst time of my life. I
Not
dread
like
it.
even an issue of Blind Spot, just like a single issue. You'd be like, ugh, feel sick.
No, not nearly as much as something like that, because you're just like, it's a low stakes thing to begin with, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's like people put up money for something, and you know, like there's going to be reviews.
If you're lucky, it's gonna be reviews.
Yes. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like, I don't want to be like an Instagram star.
No, I don't.
That's like more
Yeah.
important now than. Like,
I know, I don't either. And like I don't like all the things I have to say I want to say in my comics. I don't really want to make videos about them. I'd rather draw the stuff that I had to say, you know? Like that's what I should be doing. But now it's like, you know, you have to build your own platform and all that stuff, so.
Yeah, you gotta have your own TV show.
Right. No, I don't want. And even like the YouTube channel, like I just want like a pretty small, like low key YouTube channel where I'm just like talking to my friends. Like I'm not trying to do like a thing where I'm gonna collect interviews with all the stars of comics or whatever. Like I just want to, you know, if I have something to say, make a little video, or like then just like chat with my friends. That's all.
No, I like this. It's good.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, art is way more interesting, I think, if you know something about the person making it. Like if you become invested in them as a person or a personality. Yeah. A lot of times I won't be that interested in something just by like seeing it or reading it. But then like you dig into the person's background and like just listening to somebody talk about stuff can make you connect to a work of art so much more.
Okay, so with that said, what do you think of Will Eisner? Do you like Will Eisner?
I've always found this stuff to be kind of unreadable, but I'm very impressed with his draftsmanship. I remember going to seeing there was an art show like in 2005 probably.
Mm-hmm.
It was before I moved to LA, but I was visiting LA, and it's like the Masters of American Comics, I think it was called.
Oh yeah.
And they had a bunch of original pages from The Spirit. There you go. And they just looked incredible in person. There was like the printed form does no justice to what that work looks like in person.
Yeah, some people have really beautiful originals, and then other people, it's like the art really is the printed version of it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like
you don't like Eisner, right?
I didn't for a long time until like just like a few months ago, really. Like I started reading his work. I think it's like a lot of it's really heavy-handed, but I don't know. I think it's interesting. He's not my favorite artist or anything, but I read it all except for I didn't read all The Spirit, but I read all of his like short stories and his graphic novels. And I read some
graphic novels worth reading.
Yeah, they're worth reading. I don't know, because it's like
I remember
it's
he
like
would say like, yeah, like I started making these graphic novels and I realized it's way more important to just like focus on the writing, and then I can be like real loose with the drawing. But then I look at the graphic novels, I'm like, the drawing's way more interesting than the early stuff, and that's really the only thing I cared about to begin with. So I'd rather just get like an art book of the like Spirit.
No, yeah. I mean,
the whiteout.
It's all about like body language in like Will Eisner's work. Like everybody's so dramatic and like they're showing their feelings like with their body language and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you contrast that to like the work that we grew up or that we got that was like popular when we got into comics, which was like Chris Ware and Dan Clowes and stuff. And that stuff is all like the way people are feeling is like all internal. Like they don't show how they're feeling on the outside.
Yeah.
So look at that. Like that makes more sense to me, honestly. That somebody would be like lying with their body than being like really theatrical and stuff like that. But
and it'd be like a big word, but like way too many words in a panel, and looks like a guy like.
Well, yes, exactly.
Just like a
pouring rain coming down on him, and like, yeah. I don't know, but it's interesting to me, like as far as like comics history goes, because I really like comics history, and like hearing somebody else talk passionately about Will Eisner to them makes me appreciate Will Eisner. Like when somebody is really into it, I'm like, oh, all right, maybe. I remember the first time I visited you in LA. It's like me and John Porcellino were on tour, and we stopped in front of that bookstore. That was just where John found a parking spot. We get out, and immediately, like, because it was my first time being in Hollywood, and like Ron Livingston was walking down the sidewalk. He just walked right past me. I was like, holy shit. It's
Yeah.
Ron Livingston. What the fuck? We're in LA. Oh my God. And then you were at work or something. You were working one time. The next time I was staying with you, and I just went down to that little coffee shop and was sitting there just drawing in my sketchbook. And behind me was that lady who was in that 70s show with the red hair, Donna. She was just sitting with me, just chatting with her friends, and I was like, what? Oh my God.
That's what living in Los Feliz is like, just all the time.
Man, that was exciting.
There's certain people you just know. I just know live in Los Feliz because I see them all the time. John Hamm.
Oh yeah.
Pete Holmes.
Wow.
Yeah, and the people you mentioned, I'd see them a lot.
Just out to run or something, or what?
Just out, yeah.
Man, that's cool. Yeah.
One time I was in Fred 62, right there on the strip, like right down the street from Skylight Books.
Yeah.
And Jason Alexander was like sitting in a booth eating across from this guy that looked a lot like Jerry Seinfeld, but it wasn't Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh, shit.
It was so surreal. And I was like in the booth, like catty corner to them, just like watching these two guys have a conversation like Seinfeld.
You know what I would have done, because I was such a shithead cartoonist? I would have dropped by their table and just dropped a copy of my comic. Oh, hello, sir. Before I even lived in Columbus, I flew out. Actually, it was like I was about to go to Vermont, and I stopped in Columbus and did Space with Dan Stafford and John Porcelino. And man, me and Dan went out that night and just had like 2 pitchers of beer, just like drinking all night, having a great time. And then like I woke up in the dark, like in the hotel room, and it was like late. It was like late in the morning, but the blinds were closed, so it was like pitch black. And then the air conditioner on blast, and I had like a streaming headache. It was like ever.
The worst.
It's like I was frozen. I didn't know what time it was or where I was. It's just like everything hurt.
Did you have to go back the next day for like
we went,
the worst day? Yeah.
Yeah, we stopped at McDonald's again. And I remember trying to eat like a egg McMuffin. No, it wasn't even, because like breakfast was over. So like it was like trying to eat like some kind of like a hot and spicy McChicken or something.
Like anything to absorb this like
all the booze,
horrible thing going on in my stomach.
Yeah.
And this is like sitting behind that table all day. I was just like, oh.
We're trying to talk to you, and your head is just splitting. Yeah, for sure. That's like most of my memories of like doing comic shows early on, where it's just like, because you're seeing people you haven't seen in like a year or something, so you're just going out and drunk with them like as soon as
super fun. The nights are super fun.
Yeah, because the days
how you really make friends.
It's just humiliation the rest of the time. You're sitting there and people are like walking up and judging your artwork. Or you're like sitting next to, I'm always like tabled right next to like whoever the hottest new cartoonist is. So like they're killing it and I'm just sitting there like a chump.
They've got like a line.
Yeah, they have a huge line. I remember at one show, do you know that cartoonist Gregory Benton?
Yeah, I think so.
This is the most savage thing I ever saw at a show. They had Gregory Benton sit next to Kevin Eastman, who invented the Ninja Turtles. He had a line just like wrapped covering his table because people were just standing waiting to get their autographs from Kevin Eastman. And Gregory Benton's just sitting there the entire show.
They're like friends. Were they like friends? So they were sharing a table together, like, or something?
No. That's just the way that the tables were set up.
Got it. Yeah.
He's just
that's embarrassing.
Every once in a while, I'd like look back at him and just like laugh.
Like 99% of people that are like doing one of those shows, it's just like a slow trickle, and like hours might go by where you don't sell anything, but then you can still like. It would always do okay. It would always be like, like I made some money. I don't know if it was ever like. I never made like a ton of money doing them, but it was enough to like get my name out there, enough to like make enough of an awareness of myself to get published by a publisher.
Yeah, I always go like I'm gonna draw the full thing. I mean, I try and keep it balanced. Like I don't like to do a page where it's just all talking heads if I don't have to.
Yeah.
I'll show you an example. Like one of the pages that I have done from the Joseph Smith book is like it starts with 2 figures talking, and then it's their heads. But then when it ends, it's got to end with two figures again, you know.
Yeah.
And that
looks like well balanced and.
Oh, thanks.
I don't know how long I'm gonna be able to stick to this because it ends up being way more work. If you're like, see, I got to like draw bigger to like be able to put enough like detail that I want to put into it, and then like also like have it pulled back. Whenever you draw like a wide shot, you know, there's just more information that you got to figure out.
Well, you know, do you read Gasoline Alley comics or not?
Like I bought the first edition or the first compilation, and then like I couldn't get into it. But I do like the aesthetic of that a lot.
You know, if you look at the Sunday pages, Frank King always had the main character in the exact center of the panel. Always.
I love those Sunday pages. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So like you always, it's like you know who the main character is. So like you're looking right at him, you know. What I used to do for press when I first was just doing like self-published mini comics is I would go to the Fart Party website.
Yeah.
And Julia Wirtz was really good about having like a little sidebar on her site that said like all the latest press, and she was getting like a ton at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And any of those like websites or blogs that were interviewing her or writing about her, I just like wrote down their address and like just sent them my shit. And it was awesome because I was like, if they like Julia's stuff, then maybe they're gonna like my work.
Yeah. I'm just always impressed when a cartoonist is like very readable. Like you can just pick it up and like go through the pages, and it's not like a strain to like get through it, you know?
Yeah.
You're not like, what's this? Huh? What am I supposed to be paying attention to? You know?
Like you could tell somebody they just had something they wanted to draw, and then they just kind of attached the story to it somehow later on. That's the worst.
Right, yeah. Peanuts is the best example of that probably. Just like anybody can pick it up and read it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want my comics to be that readable, but for adults. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say Peanuts is also for adults, but it's also for kids. Yeah.
Comics are over.
Pretty much.
Comics have been canceled.
That's what we've established here, folks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So what I want to talk about was I actually just made a video on like the hypo, like my very first book, and how like it's actually kind of hard to look at this point.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you felt the same way about Cleveland. Are you like, I can't look at this book anymore?
I don't know, because I don't look at it. So.
You never look at it?
Like I'll look at like the cover. I think is good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's again like if I look at like the last 20 pages or something, they're pretty good. And there's a lot of stuff in there that I'm like, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing here. Still didn't understand how to draw a tree. You know,
I don't know how to draw a tree. I invent a new way to draw a tree every time I have to draw a tree.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
All right, man, let's end this.
All right, cool.
Well, look who made it to the very end.